Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Jayam Shabbat Paramahamsa Parivraj, Asura Shrimada's Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishapad Paramahamsa Parivraj, Shrimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, Namachar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Premsakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhana Ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki, Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki, Ganga Maya Ki, Tulsi Devi Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so reading from the Caitanya Charitamrita, chapter 13, which is the advent of Lord Chaitanya, and text number 14 we're up to. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. It's got an interesting meter on this one. We'll try it out. Durva Danya Gorochana Haridra Kunkuma Chandana Mangala Dravya Patra Bariya Vastragupta Dolachari Sange Lana Dashi Chedi Vastralankara Pitara Bariya Durva Danya Gorochana Haridra Kunkuma Chandana Mangala Dravya Patra Bariya Vastragupta Dolachari Sange Langa Dashi Chedi Vastralankara Pitari Bariya Govardhana Gorochana Haridra Kunkuma Chandana Mangala Dravya Patra Bariya Vastragupta Dolachari Sange Lana Deshi Chedi Vastralankara Pitarayi Bariya. Anybody else? Durvadanya Gorochana Haridra Kumkum Chandana Mangala Dravya Patra Bariya Vastragupta Dolachari Sangha Langa Dashi Chedi Vastralankara Pitari Bariya Duvardanya Gorochana Haridra Kunkuma Chandana Mangala Dravya Patra Bariya Vastragupta Dolachari Sangalana Dashi Chedi Vastralankara Pitari Bariya Dovadanya Gorochana Haridra Kunkuma Chandana Mangala Dravya Patra Bariya Vastragupta Dolachari Sange Lana Dashi Chedi Vastralankara Pitari Bariya. We do the word for word. Durva, fresh grass. Danya, rice paddy. Gorochana, a yellow patch for the head of a cow. Haridra, turmeric. Kunkuma, a kind of scent produced in Kashmir. Chandana, sandalwood. Mangala Dravya, auspicious things. Patra Bariya, filling up a dish. Vastragupta, covered by cloth. Dola, palanquin. Chadi, riding. Sange, along with. Lana, taking. Dasi, maidservant. Chedi, female attendants. Vastra alankara, ornaments and clothes. Petari, basket. Bariya, filled up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Riding in a palanquin covered with cloth and accompanied by maidservants, Sito Thakurani came to the house of Jagannath Mishra, bringing with her many auspicious articles such as fresh grass, paddy, gorochana, turmeric, kunkuma, and sandalwood, all All these presentations filled a large basket. Purport. The words Vastra Gupta Dollar are very significant in this verse. Even 50 or 60 years ago in Kolkata, all respectable ladies would go to a neighbouring place riding on a palanquin carried by 4 men. The palanquin was covered with soft cotton, and in that way there was no chance to see a respectable lady travelling in public. Ladies, especially those from respectable families, could not be seen by ordinary men. The system is still current in remote places. The Sanskrit word asurya pashya indicates that a respectable lady could not be seen even by the sun. Not good for the vitamin D. In the Oriental culture, this system was very much prevalent and was strictly observed by respectable ladies, both Hindu and Muslim. We have actual experience in our childhood that our mother would not go next door to her house to observe an invitation by walking. She would go in either a carriage or a palanquin carried by 4 men. This custom was also strictly followed 500 years ago, and the wife of Advaita Acharya, being a very respectable lady, observed the customary rules current in that social environment. Omajnana Chamanandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Umnitamyana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So riding in a palanquin covered with cloth and accompanied by maidservants, Sita Thakurani came to the house of Jagannath Mishra, bringing with her many auspicious articles such as fresh grass, paddy, gorochana, turmeric, kumkum and sandalwood. All these presentations filled a large basket. So this is a continuation on from all the wonderful goings-on when Lord Caitanya appeared on this planet. So lots of wonderful, auspicious functions are taking place. And we had to explain that it's an interplanetary cosmic event, actually, because we have demigods coming and celestial beings are all coming in disguised forms to take darshan of this wonderful form of Lord Krishna as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's interesting when we do the before we do the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's festival, which is Gaurapanim, and also before we do Janmashtami, we do the Adivas ceremony for the deities. We bring them out. Most of you have probably been to the festival before. We bring the deities out and place them on the table, and we offer various auspicious items to the deities. So some of these things we heard about today, they're actually part of the Adivas ceremony, the durva grass, gorochan, rice paddy, kumkum chandan. We also offer gold, silver, cloth, some sacred thread, turmeric we offer, a mirror, so many things that we offer, different items, and these are all considered to invoke auspiciousness. They're very pleasing to the Lord. So we see here that Sita Thakurani, the wife of Advaita Acharya, understands that these things are auspicious and they bring pleasure to the Lord. So therefore she's bringing these gifts in a basket to him. So similarly, we follow in the footsteps of Sita Thakurani when we do this Adivas ceremony and invoke auspiciousness so that the festival will bring great pleasure to the Lord. So interesting that we were reading today about the use of the palanquin, that Sita Thakurani has come to the house of Jagannath Mishra being carried in this palanquin. If you're not familiar with what a palanquin is, there's some images here on the board of what a palanquin is. Just basically consists of usually men carrying a basket or a carriage which a person would ride within. Also within Bengali times it was reserved for government ministers and kings and these sort of people. I was reading how about when the British were in India, when they came to Bengal, they were a bit bewildered by these palanquins, and it took them time to warm up to the use of the palanquin, and they were quite uncomfortable to ride in, apparently, because you had to sit in a certain position. So it took a bit of time for the British to tune into what the pelican was, but it's usually reserved for very respectable people within society, such as Sita Thakurani, as we've read in the previous verse, that Adwaita Acharya was quite wealthy, coming from an aristocratic, exclusive family, so therefore that is why Sita Thakurani was treated in such a respectful way. So, some nice images there to give you an understanding of what the palanquin was used for. Sometimes in the Melbourne Rath Yatra, we would, in the earlier days before we had the big cart down there, which they do in St Kilda now, we would carry the small deities of Jagannath on a palanquin around the streets of Melbourne and Swanston Street doing a wonderful kirtan. So it's still used today. Within India, Prabhupada did mention here that they're still used in remote parts of India. I personally haven't seen it. I don't know if Marai Maharaj, you've seen people? No, maybe it's not so common these days, but nevertheless, Prabhupada said it's still used in remote parts of India. And in the purport, Prabhupada is talking about how it was important, even with he talked about his own mother when they were living in Kolkata, wouldn't even travel to the house next door unless she was carried in the carriage of the palanquin. And there's a nice room conversation that Prabhupada had in Honolulu in June 1975, which further elaborated on this point about the importance of using the palanquin and keeping ladies chaste, respectable ladies, retaining their chastity. So Prabhupada, he says, the lusty desire is so prominent that whenever they will get some opportunity, that's all. Therefore, it is ordered that you should not remain alone, even with your sister, with your daughter, with your mother, and what to speak of others. Shastra says, Matra svasva duhitra va navivik santo bhavya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Text 17. Don't keep yourself alone, even with your mother or sister or daughter, what to speak of others. This is prohibited. And those who have taken this Brahman celibacy, for them to see even one woman and appreciate, oh, she is very nice, that is also subtle sex. 8 kinds of subtle sex. Therefore, according to Vedic civilization, woman is allowed to dress herself very nicely only for the husband. On the street, they will not go out. They will not go out. Even they go out covered. That must be observed strictly by the Mohammedans. Bali Madan, covered. Prabhupada, yes, nobody can see the bodily structure. Siddha Sarup. The Chinese, they are also like that, conservative. Prabhupada, Hindus, they did not do. Even my mother, my wife also. Now, from our daughter's time, they are going to next door neighbour. So my mother used to go there in car next door, not walking by car carriage, because next door, simply one step, there was no horse. The coachman by hand but still the carriage must be, otherwise there was palanquin, pronounced planquin. Going from this house to that house, a palanquin man, 4 men carried, 4 carriers. Siddha Sarup, oh, palanquin, Prabhupada, and they would charge maybe 5 paisa. Bali Madan, 5 paisa. Prabhupada, 4 men carrying the palanquin from here to there, 5 paisa. Bali Madan, Prabhupada, it was very comfortable. Bali Madan laughs, soft ride. Prabhupada, that was a situation even on my mother's time. My mother, my wife also was taken in. My wife never got in the bus or tram. No, they would travel. Bali Madan, during the time you have been living, you have seen such vast changes. Prabhupada, Bali Madan, you have seen such vast changes. Prabhupada, oh yes, I. Bali Madan, we have grown up in this degraded culture. Prabhupada, nobody should see the face of a woman veiled. Who is going? Nobody knows. Some woman is there. That is Oriental culture. I've seen in Iran, even nowadays. Bali Madan, Iran? Siddha Sarup, yes, I've seen Iran. Prabhupada, so nobody can see. Siddha Sarup, didn't the Japanese have something like that too, where they required them to be covered? Bali Madan, they just had palanquins too, but covered palanquin. The Chinese too. Prabhupada, the Japanese say about 40 years ago, one of my friends, he had a Japanese tenant in Kolkata. Not tenant, he was working with the distribution at a big office, so he was assistant cashier. So during Christmas he gave some presentation and went to his boss's house. So the servant came to receive the presentation, and when he asked about the lady, his wife, the servant replied that, in the absence of her husband, she does not see anybody. That I have seen. Not that she came to received. Oh, mister, you have come to Mr. Such and Such's house, all right. No, it was done by the servant. And when he asked about the missus, the servant said that in the absence of the master, she does not see anyone. Ballymarden, they had to paint their teeth black. Prabhupada, huh? Ballymarden, when the husband was away, the Japanese woman, they painted their teeth black. There was some dye to make them look ugly. Prabhupada, this is Vedic civilization. This is called Poshita Bhartrika. By dress, one would understand what she is, whether she is married, whether she is not married, whether her husband was out of home, whether she was widow, whether she is prostitute, everything by dress. One hasn't got to ask what she is. By her different dress, people will understand. That is called Sita. What do you call this? Part? The part. Vermilion, kumkum. Talking about the ladies with the kumkum and the hair part. No, what is this? He's talking about the part. Oh, the part, if it's in the centre. So the prostitute would keep their part, Ballymarden, right side, Prabhupada, like that, not in the middle, Ballymarden, on the side, Prabhupada, then everyone will understand she is a prostitute, Ballymarden, acha. Prabhupada, and married means the red. It is called vermilion, Ballymarden, vermilion, yes. Prabhupada, and unmarried means no vermilion. Widow means white, and Poshita Bharitrika. When husband is not at home, she will not dress at all, not comb the hair, not dress, no ornaments. In this way, simply by seeing woman, what is her dress, one can understand, just like with the Japanese. Ballymarden, this is Oriental culture. Yeah, so that was some of the refined points of, I guess it's more found within Eastern Asian cultures these days, that these cultural refinements are there, as Prabhupada was saying, so you can understand whether a lady is single, she's married, what her status is within society. So all these things are observed within Vedic culture. As Prabhupada said, this is Vedic civilization. Now, in the West, obviously it's a very different kettle of fish in the West compared to this Eastern Asian type culture. It's very confusing actually in the West. I mean, I guess some people wear a wedding ring these days. You can tell if someone's married if they wear a ring, but even that's not so common these days. So, very different situation that we have in the West. I don't think you'll see many ladies down in Byron Bay or up at the Gold Coast being carried around in a palanquin to preserve their chastity. It's not really such a done thing, especially in Australia. But nevertheless, these refinements were there for a purpose and a reason, because the foundation of Vedic civilization is for spiritual advancement, spiritual cultivation. So when people are more in the bodily concept of life, it's very, very difficult to cultivate a refined spiritual consciousness. And so, as we know, that the real problems of human life is birth, death, old age and disease. So the whole Vedic system, Vedic culture is how to become extracted from that situation of birth, death, old age and disease. So therefore there's a supporting culture which is there to assist people developing higher consciousness and refined consciousness, not be drawn down into a base level of seeing the opposite sex as a means of enjoyment. And we know that we see the story of Ajamil, like in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He came from a Brahminical family, and he saw a man and a woman, a prostitute, embracing a man, and his mind became very, very disturbed just by seeing that. And so he began pursuing the lady of ill repute and fell down from his Brahminical position and ended up in a very unfortunate situation in life. So in Vedic culture, we understand there's different types of mothers. So females, ladies, are seen as the mother. Was it the 7 mothers in Vedic culture? The nurse, the wife of a Brahmana, the wife of a king, the biological mother, the cow, and the earth are all seen as different mothers and are respected in such a way. So in that way the ladies are protected, and the men are also protected as well by seeing ladies in that light. So very nice when things are carried on in such a refined way. Prabhupada introduced the sari for the ladies and said, the sari, it makes ladies look very feminine when they wear the sari. And when you go to India, a lot of the ladies over there, especially the Rajasthanis, will wear the sari over their head. They'll cover their face, you've seen. And the Muslims. Probably may sound a little bit of oppressive, isn't it, when you hear some sort of Sharia law where the ladies are wearing this thing. But not quite like that. It's not that we'd want to introduce oppressive Sharia law sort of regimes or anything like that, but the cultural refinement is required in such a way that will assist people developing their spiritual consciousness. As Prabhupada said, it's Maitunya Agraya, it's the shackles of sex life. That's what keeps us in the material world. It's this attraction between men and women. So instead of having to stimulate that, which is what Western civilization and culture is all about through the media and the music and movies and these things, it's all about agitating that sex desire, whereas Vedic culture, it's about learning how to minimise and reduce it. Of course, there's facility for that in the Grihastha ashram, but it's not overstimulating unwanted sex desire because it deviates the consciousness from developing Krishna consciousness, which is what the purpose of human life is, understanding that the human form of life is meant for performing yajna for Vishnu, Sankirtan Yajna. That's what the human life is meant for. So we can see that modern day contemporary society is very, very far removed from understanding about what the goal and purpose of human life actually is. So as Prabhupada said, that this movement is a cultural presentation to change the lives of some pious civilization and culture. So it has these refinements to it as well. So it's something to meditate upon, and I guess it's up to the individual how much they want to pursue and follow these points. Obviously for preaching it's not so practical to be covered head to toe so you can't see the face. That when we're preaching to people we have to be able to make eye contact and speak and preach and talk and act in a normal way. So has its time and place, and as I said, it's more observed within India than it is in the West. But it's obviously when devotees go into India to go on parikram, then it's nice to observe these things, to follow these cultural refinements. In India they're still followed, so it's nice to be conscious of these things when we're going on parikram in India, because it's still followed over there to a degree. So that's the palanquin. We'll move on. So yeah, the palanquin also, during Prabhupada's time, he also used palanquins as well. In the slides here, this is when Prabhupada visited Varshana. He was taking some of his disciples on parikram to Varshana in Vrindavan, and they had two men of the Brijbasis were carrying Prabhupada on this palanquin, because when you go to Varshana there's a lot of stairs to walk up to get to the temple on top of the hill. So Prabhupada was served that way by being carried in this palanquin. And there were some remembrances of Prabhupada's disciples about this time. This is from Mahapurana Prabhu. My godbrother Joyti, this isn't, I'll get back to that one actually. Yeah, that's a different remembrance. Yeah, so this is from this 1971. I put 76, but actually 1971. This is from Chasing Rhinos by the Swami by Shamasundra. Then on we went from Govardhan to Varshana, Radharani's birthplace, where two men carried Srila Prabhupada up many concrete stairs to her place on a palanquin. Make way, the Maharaj returns. He's laughing like a little kid. Prabhupada, yes, to ride on this palanquin is very comfortable. Laughter, at the cost of others. Laughing. Tamal Krishna, we should construct one, Prabhupada, for the remainder of the trip. Prabhupada, it is better than any other vehicle. Formerly kings were being carried by palanquin. They did not like carriage. Palanquin was transformed to carriage first in England, palanquin carriage drawn by a horse. So Prabhupada, he liked being carried in the palanquin. From the recounts of the devotees who were there, it was a very jovial time taking Prabhupada up to Varshana on this palanquin. Radhanath Swami also recalled, when Prabhupada was being carried on the Brijbasi palanquin up and down the hill of Varshana, the devotees were just so blissful, so happy to see Prabhupada being carried in this way. And although it seemed like a very uncomfortable way of travelling, Prabhupada was bouncing back and forth. Srila Prabhupada looked so blissful. At times he smiled so blissfully, just so happy to be amongst his devotees, roaming through the hills and mountains of Varshana, Sri Radharani's place of pastimes. Yes, so those of you who have been to Varshana before, it's a very wonderful place, Radharani's parents' place. And to get up there, you have to transverse or walk up a lot of these stairs to get there. So it's a bit of a hike to get up there. So the devotees were being very kind, serving Prabhupada in this way. It's a very wonderful place, Varshana. And there's some other remembrances with Prabhupada and palanquins. Mahapurana, my godbrother Joytir Radicha made a palanquin for Srila Prabhupada at the temple in Detroit. When Prabhupada came in the first day, he looked at the palanquin and continued to walk upstairs to the attic that had been converted into the temple room. But on the third day, Prabhupada came in the door and looked at the palanquin again, and he actually went and sat on it. The devotees called for myself and Joytir Radicha and 2 other devotees to come and carry the palanquin. I was, of course, quite nervous. As I touched the handle to the palanquin, sweat beads popped out on my head. I was thinking, we can't drop Prabhupada because that would be the end of the world. We all stood up straight, and as I was the tallest person, I had to kind of scrunch down a bit to make it level. I was thinking, we have to make things nice for Prabhupada. We can't make him uncomfortable. We're all different sizes and probably came to the movement at different times, but none of that mattered then. What mattered was that we didn't inconvenience Prabhupada in any way. We carried him across the floor at 2 steps and a little platform and then turned left to go up the stairs, going toward the 2nd floor. I kept thinking, we can't drop Prabhupada. We have to wait. We have to watch if his head is coming close to the ceiling. We came up to that 2nd level and we couldn't go up any further with the palanquin because the stairs became tighter. We had to let him down so he could get off the palanquin, and he walked into the temple room. My realisation from that event is if we look at ISKCON as Prabhupada's body, and we're all helping to carry that body, we all have to cooperate in order that Prabhupada is not inconvenienced at any point. We have to really work together. It doesn't matter about our size, shape, when we came, what our different services might be, but they all have to be coordinated in such a way that as Prabhupada's movement grows, Prabhupada's not inconvenienced to the point where he becomes upset by the way we act and treat each other. It's quite a profound realisation by this devotee, using the analogy of carrying Prabhupada and the palanquin to the body of ISKCON, which is like Prabhupada's body, so it should be carried in such a way which everyone is cooperating and being respectful to each other and treat each other in a nice way, just as they were being considerate towards Prabhupada's needs, carrying him in the palanquin. That's something we can all reflect on, about our way we deal with devotees and interact with other devotees, whatever their services, whatever their services may be. So that's Prabhupada and his palanquin in Varshana. So also in Prabhupada's final days in Vrindavan, Prabhupada came to Vrindavan, I think it was around May of, I've got the date here, it was May 1977 that he came to Vrindavan. This was after he was very, very unwell. So May 17th, 1977, Prabhupada said, I think he was in Rishikesh for a period of time when he was trying to recuperate his health, but then he realised that his health was getting worse and worse. So he said, better to die and leave my body in Vrindavan. So he came to Vrindavan on May the 17th, 1977, getting ready to leave. So the devotees were using the palanquin for Prabhupada to carry him from his room into the temple room so he could have darshan of the deities. And this palanquin, you can still see that, it's still actually in Prabhupada's room. His room's in Vrindavan, just at the back of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. So there's all sorts of paraphernalia there that Prabhupada used during his earthly times, his cooking paraphernalia. There's the bed he left his body in. The palanquin is also there as well, being preserved, his writing table and desks. So you can see these things when you visit the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. These things are still there, including the palanquin. So this is from Prabhupada Nectar by Swarup Das Goswami. During Prabhupada's last days in Vrindavan, he used to be carried up and down the stairs in a palanquin chair. His habit was to take rest during the day in his bed on the roof. One day, going up the narrow staircase from the 1st floor to the roof, Caitanya Maharaj carried the rear portion of Prabhupada's palanquin by its 2 handles, and another man carried the front. Tamal Krishna Maharaj led the group, and Upendra Das followed, carrying Prabhupada's drinking lota and quilt. Suddenly Srila Prabhupada began to laugh uncontrollably. The devotees were amazed because Srila Prabhupada was very ill and had been silent and grave. "Do you want to hear a funny story?" he asked. They all answered, "Yes, Prabhupada. Let us go upstairs, there I can say." While Upendra rushed to get his tape recorder, the others brought Srila Prabhupada to the roof, placed him on his bed and sat at his feet. Srila Prabhupada's body was very gaunt from the months of fasting and he lay back but continued laughing. Quote, this is Prabhupada speaking, "There is a Bengali proverb," he said, "Garib manus cha chinga kai hakta galo goda jai." Just to say it made Prabhupada laugh more. The devotees remained mystified and expectant. "Now I'll explain," said Srila Prabhupada. Garib manus. Garib means poor and manus means man. Again Srila Prabhupada broke into laughter, his thin body shaking and his whole face smiling. "Chachinga kai," he continued. Chachinga means grasshopper. Kai eats. So this poor man has nothing to eat except that he is finding some grasshoppers and eating them. Garib manus chachinga kai hakta gelo. But when he goes to pass stool, Goda Jai, he rides in a big white horse. Prabhupada laughed loud and all the devotees sat by in amazement. Then Prabhupada turned to Upendra and said, "You understand?" Upendra's face became red in non-understanding. Caitanya Maharaj was thinking, "I hope Prabhupada does not ask me." Caitanya turned to Tamal Krishna Maharaj and whispered, "Tamal, do you understand?" Tamal Krishna Maharaj gave an unsure nod and said yes, but he remained silent. Prabhupada said, "Just see, Garib Manus, he is a poor man eating only grasshoppers, but when he goes to pass stool, he rides a big white horse." When Prabhupada saw that they could not understand, he explained further. "Similarly, I'm a sannyasi, so a sannyasi is a beggar, a poor man. I'm a poor man, and yet when I have to go to sleep, then 4 men must carry me in palanquin." In this way, they all laughed and enjoyed Prabhupada's story, but not quite as much as did Prabhupada himself. So Prabhupada, even in his health decline, was still seeing the humour in being carried on his palanquin. That even though he was a renounced sannyasi, that when he has to go to sleep, he's carried in this palanquin to take rest. So Prabhupada could see the humour in his situation. Prabhupada's had a sense of humour. So one other pastime with palanquin was obviously the story from the Srimad Bhagavatam with Jada Bharat and King Rahugana. This is the 5th canto, I believe, that when King Rahugana is being carried on this palanquin by some of his servants, and it was a very bumpy ride for him in this palanquin. So they saw what they thought was this large-bodied, less intelligent person. His name was Jada Bharat. So King Rahugana ordered his servants to conscript this Jada Bharat to carry him this palanquin, so it was a smoother ride for him on the palanquin. So the king didn't realise that this Jada Bharat was actually a self-realised soul, very spiritually developed, a Paramahamsa. So while Jada Bharat didn't protest about being conscripted to carrying this King Rahugana on his palanquin, because he was spiritually enlightened, he was being very careful he was stepping because he wanted to avoid stepping on the ants. So he didn't compromise his spiritual realisation just to satisfy the king. He retained his consciousness that, as we know, that it says in the Bhagavad Gita that someone who's enlightened, Brahmani, Gabari, Hashtani, they will see everything equally, whether it's a Brahmana, a cow, a dog, or a dog eater. The self-realised soul sees everything from the spiritual perspective. They don't see the outer body, they see the soul within everything. So Jada Bharat was in this consciousness. So while he was trying to avoid stepping on these ants, the palanquin became very wobbly as he was avoiding making offences to these living entities. So King Rahugana became very angry and was chastising this Jada Bharat, calling him an imbecile and a buffoon and all these things. And then when Jada Bharat spoke words, the king realised this is actually a very exalted, self-realised soul. So he climbed down from the palanquin and paid his obeisances to Jada Bharat and requested to forgive him for his offences. And there's a very nice dialogue in the 5th canto between Jada Bharat and King Rahugana, where Jada Bharat enlightens him and brings him to the transcendental platform, understanding that we're not these bodies, the body is just an outer covering. So many palanquin pastimes within Vedic culture and Vedic civilization. And as we were reading today, Sita Thakurani was being transported in this palanquin when she was coming to see the birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and bringing him lots of wonderful gifts. So anyway, that was a bit of a sidetrack about palanquins, but it's interesting anyway. I got a bit sidetracked, thought, it could be interesting subject matter to discuss in a class about the use of palanquins and Prabhupada Leela and palanquins, because they were also used during service to Prabhupada as well. So has anybody questions or points that they'd like to bring up or discuss from what we've been discussing today from the Caitanya Caritamrita?
Just a simple thing. What's the significance of offering dry grass, means the grass, green grass?
Durva grass?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's because durva grass is used for meditation. Like the yogis would sit on durva grass. I understand it has some quality which deters snakes and other unwanted pests. So I think it's one of the functions of durva grass is auspicious in that sense, that it keeps away envious creatures, envious entities like snakes and these things. And yogis would meditate on durva grass and tiger skin and these things. So it would keep them away. In fact, we were reading in the class last week when Maharaj gave the talk that another item that Sita Thakurani brought with her was a tiger claw covered in gold. What else did she bring? She also bought tiger nails set in gold, waist decorations of silk and lace, ornaments for the hands and legs, nicely printed silken saris, and a child's garment, also made of silk. Many other riches, including gold and silver coins, were also presented to the child. So, yeah, all sorts of auspicious things. So durva grass is one of those things as well, just considered auspicious. Gold, silver, and so forth. We offer these as well, as I said, when we do the Adi-lila ceremony. All these things are offered as well. Gold rochan, silver, gold, paddy, rice paddy, turmeric. Yeah. Very nice. Rupa.
You were saying that the British introduced the horse-drawn carriages. So obviously before that time maybe they had something similar. But my point was that Western civilization, especially now, like everyone's driving around in flash cars, and we always heard over the years as devotees that driving flash cars is like extension of sex life, And there's always been sort of a contention between devotees that, should we really drive nice cars, or maybe we should drive cars that are more older and not so flash. But then at the same time you have to have a decent car that doesn't break down all the time. So it seems to be that it's easy with these things like what to speak of materialistic people. They're very proud of their things like cars and big houses and things like that. But it seems like there's also a chance, as aspiring devotees, that you can get easily over proud with driving a nice car or having a big house. So how do we?
Well, it just comes down to the consciousness of the individual. Like I was just thinking of when Prabhupada was picked up by the Rolls Royce, and then one of the reporters was challenging him, saying, you're just driving this Rolls Royce, and Prabhupada said back to him, well, I say Rolls Royce is not enough. What is this Rolls Royce? It's metal and rubber. It's not enough. So, Prabhupada understood that he's a representative of Krishna. So he wasn't in the consciousness that, for his own prestige, his point was he's making is that if you have a representative of Krishna here, they should be treated respectfully. But of course, the representative of Krishna isn't using it for their own pratishta, their profit, adoration, distinction. they're seeing it in the light of it's being offered to them so they can do their service nicely for Krishna. So, yeah, it just depends on the advancement of the individual. What's that pastime? Pundarik Vijayanidhi, right? When Gadadhar Pandit saw Pundarik Vijayanidhi, and Pundarik Vijayanidhi was, I think he was sitting on a palanquin as well, and had his hair oiled back and appeared like a materialist. And Gadadhar Pandit, when he saw Pundarik Vijayanidhi, was a little critical in his thinking towards him, thinking, people say he's a great devotee, he's just some mundane materialist. Look at him wearing nice clothing and hair oiled back and looking at himself in a mirror, and he's vain. So he was thinking in that way. And then who was the devotee that Mukunda said to him, well, just wait, watch this. So he went up and he said some verses from the Bhagavatam to Pundarik Vijayanidhi, and when Pundarik Vijayanidhi heard this, he went into ecstasy and was rolling around on the ground in great ecstasy, and Gadadhar Pandit realised, I've been offensive, he's actually a great devotee. Yeah, so it's we shouldn't judge others, and especially not be envious of others. Like the tendency in material consciousness is especially in Australia, they call it the tall poppy syndrome, right? We see someone who's doing well or succeeding, or they have some wealth or success, and it's like, pull them down. So it's quite a common thing in Australia, this tall poppy syndrome, is be envious and pull others down and like that. So we shouldn't be envious of others' situation, because we understand people are given facilities based on karmic laurels. There's some reason why they've got some opulence in this lifetime, wealth or prestige, whatever it may be. So a devotee doesn't want to be envious and pull others down. We just want to see everybody engaged in Krishna's service. So we see whatever opulences Krishna has given us by his grace, whether it's car or money or wealth, that we use that somehow in Krishna's service, and not be envious of others, and actually have an attitude of gratitude and appreciation for these things. Like, thank you, Krishna, I'm so fallen and such a rascal that I don't deserve any of this, and you're being so kind to me that you've given me these things. So please somehow let me use this somehow in a meaningful way in your service, please. So it's all just depends on the consciousness of the individual. Yeah. Hope that helps. I'm not envious of your old Mercedes, Rupert, don't worry. I think it's time to get rid of it. You still got it, that one? Still got it, okay. I'm certainly not envious of the old Mercedes, Rupert. Has anyone got any other questions or points? All right. Jai. Shri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai. Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.